So welcome everybody to this webinar on studying a master's in global supply chain and logistics management. I'm joined today by Dr Mike Rogerson and also Johanna Nakatumbe as well. They're going to be presenting this webinar today. I am going to hand over to them now and I will pop back again at the end for questions. But thank you so much, Mike and Johanna. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. So maybe it makes sense if I start, Johanna, and then you can offer your reflections on everything once I've done talking. Hello, everyone, and welcome online, at least, to the University of Sussex Business School. As Ellen said, my name is Dr. Mike Rogerson. I am an assistant professor in operations management and the current course director of the Global Supply Chain and Logistics Management MSc. I have been teaching on the course for a couple of years. I'm the course director this year, and I have a background in what some people, I think, unfairly call the real world, as in the non-academic world, in operations and supply chain management, working all over Africa and the Middle East. So I lived prior to doing my PhD in Angola, in South Africa, in Tanzania, in Qatar, in the UAE, in Russia. I also worked as an operations consultant for a couple of years just before I did my PhD, and I worked on big consulting operations projects for multinational companies all over the world, in Asia, in the US and Canada, and all over Europe. And I like the fact that I can bring some of that knowledge into the classroom when relevant, and also that it helps me to part design and part think through the needs of students on a course like what we call the GSCLM. And this is a great time for you to be thinking about doing a master's on this topic. Supply chains are, and I may well be biased in this, but I think as objectively as I can think that the supply chains are at the center of everything at the moment. So if we think about some of the geopolitical tensions that we're seeing with America and China and America and other parts of the world, if you think about some of the major sustainability problems that we're having, if you think about almost anything from problems that happened during COVID in terms of getting the products and the materials and the services that we rely on for our day-to-day lives. If you think about the electronic device that's in front of you right now and through which we're communicating, everything relies on the flow of supply chains and the operations that sit behind those flows. And that makes it a really exciting time to be discussing these issues, to be learning about them, to be engaging in a course like this at a university like Sussex, where we have a really strong tradition of excellent supply chain management and operations management research. And it means that you guys are at the forefront of essentially designing and running the future. So some of those geopolitical issues, a lot of the legislation that's happening globally is really focused on supply chains. Everything that's being talked about around sustainability and climate change, all of it spoken about in very general terms, but really what it comes down to is better design, better management, better operation of supply chains, bringing down carbon emissions. And I think that means that we are the center of everything. We are not the masters of the universe. I think people in the finance department might take issue with that, but we are key as supply chain and operations managers, supply chain operations and logistics managers. We are key to what the future is going to look like. And we cover in the masters everything that you'd expect. That it's a very broad master's degree covering everything from purchasing right the way through to humanitarian supply chains, which many people have not considered before they start studying, but which turn out to be one of the most interesting parts of supply chain management, or one of the most important or interesting aspects. There's the really core issues like managing operations and quality, managing global supply chains, logistics management. And then there's beyond the kind of core topics of what you will need in terms of core knowledge, basic knowledge, and applied knowledge of supply chain operations and logistics management. We also have a core module on employability. That's been run by a colleague of mine who has done an extremely good job for the last few years of really helping people who have come to the UK to do a master's degree and aren't as familiar with the UK job market as they might be, to help them learn what getting into employment looks like here, and to understand expectations of companies, where to look, and all of those things, because this is a very employment-driven market right now. We know that the academics that are going to deliver the course are interested in the core subjects that you're going to learn about. We know that our passions lie in that, and that we hope that when you come here and you undertake a master's degree at University of Sussex Business School, you'll be interested in those topics as well, because those topics are interesting. But we do know that at the heart of it, employability is really key, and there is a big focus and a growing focus on that here at Sussex. There's been a lot of conversation about it in the department recently. And so we put that at the heart of everything we do. There's also a growing focus on things like supply chain modeling, and there's a module on that. The analytical side of supply chains, the quantitative side of supply chains, has not traditionally played much of a part in supply chain operation and logistics management masters, because it makes up quite a small part of the role, but it's a small and growing part of the role. And we know that from talking to employers, that these are becoming increasingly important for them. And so we're keen to pass on that learning as best we can. At the end of the masters, we have a research project that allows you to go out and do research on any supply chain operations, logistics topic that you like. Some of the projects have been absolutely fascinating. I'm sure Johanna will talk about hers in some detail in a little bit, but we've had projects on transport optimization in Pakistan, on technology in the fisheries industry in Indonesia. There's been a very broad range of topics on that. It's been really interesting to see where people's passions lie. In terms of who delivers the course, we have within the management department here a group of supply chain operations and logistics specialists. And I think before I go into their expertise, it's really important to know that we are, rather than standalone information, decisions, operations, supply chain, however some universities organize their departments, we are a supply chain and operations group that sits within the management department, and that gives us access to a much broader range of expertise, a much broader range of knowledge. It means that when we're talking about changes that can be made to courses, we're bringing in people who aren't necessarily supply chain people, but look at, teach, research topics that are very close to the ones that my colleagues and I in the supply chain end of our corridor research and teach. It means that we've got expertise in everything from operations optimization to human rights in supply chains, global value chains. There's a very broad range of expertise that's focused on pretty much anything that could be related to operations, logistics, and supply chain management. And that gives us, I think, a really rounded student experience. And it means we're able to call on that knowledge, the contacts that those people have, and make sure that day to day, week to week, month to month, this course continues to develop, and we are continually able to offer the most up-to-date student experience, the most up-to-date knowledge that we can. Within the department, we have people focused on modeling. So I have a colleague, Dr. Biao Yang, who's focused on modeling. Supply chain resilience in the office behind me is my colleague Adela Kondich. We have people focused on general supply chain management. So Gervais in the room opposite me. My own research, my own teaching is focused on corporate social sustainability and technology. So 5 years ago, I published one of the first ever academic case studies on the use of blockchain in supply chains. I've done work on cocoa supply chains, mining supply chains, looking predominantly from a labor and sustainability viewpoint. Recently, I had a paper accepted in one of the top journals in our field, Journal of Operations Management, on a big blockchain operations project. So we have that real breadth of knowledge as well and depth of knowledge, as well as these specialisms, which I think are really important to be able to give our students the most up-to-date experience based on the most recent research, and to allow your knowledge and your expertise to develop using cutting edge research and making sure that you're as knowledgeable as possible by the end of the course, that you've enjoyed the course, and that you have all of the skills to be as employable as possible by the end of the course. I, as Johanna would probably tell you if I wasn't here, could talk probably forever about this. I really love this course and the direction it's going in. I love running it. I love teaching on it. But I think hearing from someone who's been in my classroom would be really valuable, and giving you as much time as possible to answer questions, I think would be really useful as well. So let me hand over to Johanna now, and if anyone's got any questions, you can put them in the Q&A box. Johanna, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. As briefly introduced, I am Johanna Nakatumbe, and I'm an alumni of Sussex Business School. And I'm very pleased to be here, but more specifically, to be sharing this platform with my research supervisor, Dr. Mike. Okay, I am Johanna, I said, from Namibia. Namibia is a small country by population, located in the southern part of Africa, and it is home to the oldest desert in the world. Okay, I've completed my master's in global supply chain last year, September, and graduated this year, January, in absentia. I'm currently working as a project assistant with a firm, consulting firm, European consulting firm, but based in my country, where I'm working with under the National Planning Commission, assisting and implementing the European Union projects in my country, building capacity and institutional development in ministries, offices, and agencies in the country. So prior to that, I did a bachelor's degree in logistics and supply chain management in a local university. And after that, I went into academia as a junior lecturer. Alongside that, I was involved into youth leadership and community development, an opportunity which enabled me to develop and exercise my passion for sustainability, specifically environment, and now the social part of sustainable supply chain sustainability. It is all this that enabled me to pursue my master's degree in supply chain with the University of Sussex through the Chevening Scholarship. And I would like to say that I went for this specific master's degree to back up my undergraduate degree, but also to get deeper understanding and insight on global complex networks of suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors. And also having now developed and found my niche area to say, or the area I want to focus on, supply chain sustainability, to see how it is being applied, and it can be applied better in terms of the environment and social life or human life. Knowing that, especially that most of the environmental damage and maybe human rights violations happen in supply chains, from the manufacturing to the end part of the supply chains. Okay, so that was the reason why I chose global supply chain, but also the global part of the program was quite attractive because I wanted to understand the entire supply chains, who produces what, who supplies what, and when there's crisis in one area, which part is affected, and maybe think of what strategies are being put in place to ensure that the operations continue. Okay. Dr. Mike spoke of the module humanitarian supply chain. That was one of the modules that also attracted or contributed to me doing this module, because it's someone that is quite intentional about the skills I want to nurture, the impact I want to make, and the organization through which I want to make the impact. I had already, prior to starting this master's, I had already decided what I want to do after. And I had two options. Because I already had experience in academia, I was either going to remain in academia based on my performance and how I like academic work, or I am going to get into international development organizations such as the United Nations, the African Union or European Union, or similar. So having seen that the humanitarian services supply chain was one of the optional modules, I was certain that this is what I want to go for or opt as an optional module, especially that it covers both humanitarian, which is mostly done in developmental organizations, international organizations, and also the service part, which is now falls into academia, or which academia falls part of. And that gave me sort of an opportunity to evaluate at the end of the course or the program what I was going to focus on. So we were the first cohort to actually have that, to do that module. It was new and unique. And it was also a nice opportunity for me to be part of the first students to actually have that taught. And the second part of why I liked or I chose this modules, I also looked at or considered the assessment methods. Having just done, having been assessed through exams in my undergraduate, I didn't think it was really helpful for me. But having looked at this assessment methods for this program, that not all modules are assessed through one method, which is exams. So it was coursework, writing reports, and academic essays, which I thought it was a good idea, because then you get the opportunity to sit down and critically think and apply the theories you are taught in class. And then also read articles, academic articles in journals, and reference your work. So you really know what you're doing and you get to understand, which is, I think, is a skill that is very crucial in anyone's career, to critically think and be able to sort of read and know what is happening and make critical judgment on that. So one would ask if it was worth studying this or this module or this program rather. I would say it was worth studying the Masters in Global Supply Chain with the University of Sussex, because immediately after I completed my program, I returned home. And because I had not resigned from my previous work, I took a 1-month gap before I resumed my work with the previous employer. And upon starting, I was promoted to an acting manager role. And also while busy with that role, I got appointed as in a bid evaluation committee under the Central Procurement Board of Namibia. So that is the biggest procurement board in my country. And also while busy with those two roles, I was called now for my current employer for an interview. And this is the current job that I'm actually busy with now. And I find it quite worth highlighting that I did not apply for this job. A stranger who I know and shared my CV with on LinkedIn actually shared my CV with my current employer, who was recruiting at the time. And so they called me for an interview. Yeah, I got the job. I was not the only one though, among other participants, so I got the job. So I would say definitely there's no doubt that completing this program contributed to my employability, having also applied the skills, the knowledge I was taught in the employability module that Dr. Mike just mentioned. It is a very relevant and crucial module. And if applied, it really yields results, and I can testify. And also, apart from that, just to add to the worth of completing this program, there were other 2 local universities that wanted to take me on. Were actually headhunting me for a full-time lecturing jobs. But then because I was very certain that I want to get into the industry and remain and sort of get a practical sense of supply chains and see how sustainability is actually being applied or can be applied, I had to turn them down. Yes. Why I chose, maybe I can also share on why I chose to go for University of Sussex. I mean, because there are so many other universities offering the same or similar course. But then I looked at the rankings, and I said earlier, I'm not one that just decides, but also list the reason as to why I want to do something. So I looked at the University of Sussex rankings. It is ranked as one of the first in the world in developmental studies. And supply chain is part of development. I mean, development is part of, I don't know which one is part of which. Which one comes first? But yes, they align. And it is also the 10th in supply chain. The supply chain program is ranked as a 10th in the UK. So that was also, that is also where I based my decision on studying for this module. But also generally, University of Sussex being based in Brighton, which is quite a generally friendly city. And I can also testify because having stayed in the UK during the time where there were riots and all that, I mean, it was intense in other parts of the UK, but then, I mean, it was not the case in Brighton. So I would say it was a friendly environment. And the experience of studying with the business school is an excellent experience, I would say, because maybe I forgot to mention I was one of the class representatives of my cohort. And I have seen firsthand from the students' complaints. I have listened to the students' complaints, and I have also listened to the responses from the academic staff, the course director, and I have seen how fast and willing they were to solve and increase the students' experience. The module conveners always made extra time in their daily timetables to have one-on-one sessions with students. There were field trips and guest lecturers, which were most of the fun, most fun part of my studies. And I ensure that I never missed any of those, because it was a chance and opportunity to see what is happening on the ground in the organizations in the UK. So that was a very, very good experience. And I've also attended, I also ensured, because I have listed the skills that I want to gain and throughout my studies, which included now leadership and forced me to take up the course representative role. Also, having been in the journey of deciding where I would go after, I attended some academic workshops, academic conferences. And so that enabled me to get insight in my field and just make decisions on what I want to do after, and also hence increasing my experience at the university. That is all from my side, unless there are questions or additions from Mike.
Thank you very much, Johanna. So that's covered the academic part, excuse me, of the Masters. It's covered the student experience part of the Masters. There's more to the Masters. So Johanna touched there on field trips and guest lectures and things like that. We are very lucky here to be based close to Brighton. Excuse me a second. Excuse me. We're very lucky to be based close to Brighton, which is a very welcoming, very fun city on the coast. It is, I'm sure everyone is aware of the stereotype of Britain as a grey, rainy place. There are parts of the year where it's grey and rainy here. But the west of England is where most of the rain falls, and Brighton is generally a lot drier and a bit warmer than the west part of England, not least because it's as far south as you can get, being on the south coast. We are an hour away from London, so if you like the area and choose to live here, there are many, many people that commute from this area into London to work, because obviously London is a big cultural hub and an interesting place to visit, but it's also a big employment hub as well. On the way into London, if you go from the university campus into London, you go through Gatwick Airport, and that is also a big logistics hub, a big supply chain hub, big operations hub, and a place where, and I think Johanna might have missed out on this because I'm not sure we did it last year, but we've done it this year, is a place where we tend to take students for field trips. So they get to see what operations look like at Gatwick Airport. We've also got a big seaport nearby, so that's another field trip that we often do in terms of taking students to see what the operations at seaports look like. We are about, hopefully, to get permission from DHL to take our students to their new huge warehouse site, which is not far north of here, to look around that. So we're plugged in very nicely to sites and companies around us that give us that ability to show students how things are actually done here, rather than just sitting in a classroom and listening to us. And of course, we're also accredited by two of the major, if not the two major professional bodies. So completing the course, being on the Global Supply Chain Logistics Management course, accredits you for with CIPS, the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply, and CILT, the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. And that is a great head start in your career, because many jobs in the UK and internationally expect membership of those bodies because it denotes a level of experience and knowledge, and also a commitment to continued professional development. Every year, those two organizations come to campus. SILT comes twice and brings their own speakers with them. So we recently had Claire Bottle, who is the UK Warehousing Association Chief Executive, come to campus and talk about the role and importance of warehousing in operations, logistics, and supply chain management. And we've had a representative from SIPS. Both organizations, but especially SIPS, run regular national and regional events that members are welcome to attend. So we've had students this year go to London, to Portsmouth and Southampton and other places around the south and southeast of the UK to attend those lectures and talks, and to develop their networks and ask questions and all of those things. So we are very proud of how we've developed the course itself, and of the people who deliver the course and the modules within it, but also the infrastructure around it in terms of where you'd be based if you came to Sussex, and the wider offering that helps employability and knowledge development and personal development while you're here. And I think that's all I've got to say. So unless Johanna's got anything else to add to any of that, if anyone has any questions, we would be delighted to answer them for you.
Thanks so much, Jake and Miranda. That was excellent. I'm just having a quick look at the Q&A. I don't think we've had any questions come through just yet, but if you do have any questions, we will wait a few minutes in case you have any that you're thinking through. So do feel free to pop those in the Q&A, or if you prefer, you can pop them in the chat as well. What I'll do as well is I'm going to put in the chat the email for our PG inquiries team. So if you have any questions more generally about applying for a master's at Sussex, about scholarships, anything like that, then I will pop that in there now. That is the email if you have any general inquiries and you would like to ask them there. We'd be very happy to help. I don't think we've had any questions come through. So we'll give it another minute or so. But Mike and Johanna, is there anything that you'd like to add before we close out the webinar?
Just that we'd like to welcome you to Sussex. It's a lovely place to be. We've got the very vibrant Brighton, 10 minutes south of here. There's literally a national park out of my window. If I ignore the car park that way a little bit, that I can see the trees, which are the border of a national park. I went into London myself at the weekend. It's super easy to get there if you want to do it for tourism or employment purposes. And there's a lot of exciting things happening at Sussex at the moment in terms of curriculum development, employability, and the general student experience. Come and find out for yourselves.
Maybe just to add to that, the environment in which Sussex is located is what actually I liked most, being one that is that likes the environment, that likes environment that is well taken care of, that likes the environment that is not degraded. Sussex is a very beautiful environment, very refreshing. And wherever you are, you feel maybe stressed because of the books, then you have the wild park just nearby. You can take a walk there, or take a walk in the nearby by the nearby trees. Just it's quite interesting, and I like that Sussex preaches and practices sustainability.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you both so much. I don't think we have any further questions. So the recording will be sent out if you want to review this, or if you missed the beginning, it will be sent out by email to attendees and to those who weren't able to attend today. That general inquiries email is in the chat. Other than that, just to say thank you so much to our two panelists, and thank you to all our attendees. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.